Capriati's is officially welcoming you to the club. It's not just a sandwich, it's pure VIP status. Introducing the all-new Classic Club and Wagyu Club. Picture this: slow-roasted hand-pulled turkey, layered with hickory smoked bacon, prosciutto peppered ham, adding that perfect kick. Or savor the rich, melt-in-your-mouth American Wagyu beef from Snake River Farms. 2 extraordinary subs, 1 exclusive club. And the best part, you're in it. Ready to experience the ultimate indulgence? Order now only at Capriati's.
You're listening to Me and Paranormal You with your host, Ryan Singer. It's more fun to believe.
Third year bonus. Hey man. Welcome to the program, man. How are you doing? I hope you're doing good, man. My name's Todd. Welcome to the show, man. Number 333. You add those up, you get 9, man. It's 9. 9's a cool number, man. 3's really cool, too. 3 squared is 9, but that's just math, I guess, man. Anyway, I just wanted to say thank you for listening to Third Year Bonus. This is a it's a Han Solo episode of the Mindcast, of the podcast. Me and Paranormal You, Ryan Singer, and hey, man, if it wasn't for these 30 year bonuses, man, I never would have been born, man. I wouldn't even be here, man. And I'm here because these are here, man. Yeah, that's cool. That's something I thought about that was pretty cool. That they've never happened. That never happened, man. And I'm glad it happened because I'm glad to be happening, man. What's the hap? Well, I'm happening, man. Anyway, let's hand it over to my buddy.
You're gonna hand it over to me?
Yeah, let's hand it over to you, man.
You know what I love about you, Todd?
What, man?
You never interrupt me like Nigel does. You ever notice that?
Yeah, man. Nigel is cool, man.
No, I mean, Nigel will talk over me as I'm talking sometimes. I mean, you notice that?
Yeah, man. I noticed it. It's cool, man.
Well, Todd, I love that you think everything is cool. But in this particular case, I might implore you that it's conversation. People talk over each other, right?
Yeah, man, they do. Except me and you, man.
I wonder why that is, Todd.
I don't know, man.
I don't know either, Todd, but I appreciate you. I love you, brother. And I'm also glad that 30-year bonuses happened because you happened.
Hey, man, you have a right to remain...
No, Todd. We're not doing that again, man. We're not doing that again, Todd.
Okay, man. I'll be back later, maybe, man.
I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will. Welcome to the show. A lot going on in the world of the paranormal. You might be thinking, this sounds like, okay, hypothetical. You've never heard the program before. Okay, first time tuning into Me and Paranormal You, thinking you're getting dramatic tones. Dun-dun. Ooh, spooky, a spooky music bed. There was a girl in Madison, Wisconsin who didn't know how evil could get. And then it's just a story about, a doll that moved once or something. Like, I'm not trying to oversell paranormal spookiness on this program. We're talking about, all things paranormal, all things outside the scope of what could be considered to be normal. These are the things we do here on this program. 333 is a special number for a couple reasons. One, because it's just a beautiful, magical number. a sacred geometrical number, one might say. And then also we have, and I'm a stand-up comedian. That's what I do for my living. And so I love the number 3. The rule of 3 is kind of how I live my life, right? So in addition to all of this beautiful, wonderful stuff with the number 3 and 333, we also have episode number 800. Wow. 800 episodes. I have talked to so many people about their paranormal experiences, about their thoughts on the esoteric, about their experiences being members of secret societies or encounters with ghosts, growing up in haunted homes, to ITC research, which you probably heard yesterday. If you're, I know we're putting out an episode every day this week in celebration of the 11-year anniversary. So we got 3 really magical things happening simultaneously. This is the first week of year number 12, right? Which is also a really cool number, because we had our 11th anniversary. Now we have 800. This is the 800th episode, and it happens to be the 333rd solo episode. So this is a great synchronistic event. This is beautiful. It's magical. And we actually do. Can you believe it? Hey, man, what? Todd, I've actually got concrete breaking. Oh, well, it's not breaking news. Thoughts on very fresh paranormal news and information to be bringing you. Specifically, there is a rabbit hole, by the way, that I started going down last night that is in danger of swallowing me entirely. I don't want to talk about it yet because it's too much, it's too thick, it's too wild, and I don't know enough about it yet. But I will say this. I did watch episode 4 of Dr. Stephen Greer's podcast, the Dr. Stephen Greer podcast. Episode 5 dropped today. I have not had time to watch it before this. I did a great interview I had a great, incredible talk with Matthew Jackson, friend of the show, about ITC, and a recent article that he posted on his website, obscuravox.com. I cannot recommend going there enough. This article, which was posted about a week and a half ago, The Expansive Framework of Instrumental Transcommunication, Unveiling the Foundations of ITC, Understanding the Bones of Communication with the Unknown. It is such an incredible article. It's brilliant. It's profound. I would say it is at the cutting edge of the field of the paranormal and what he is bringing together, the holistic, the scientific, the spiritual. It's a holistic approach to ITC and the paranormal. It deals with consciousness, idealism, quantum mechanics, hermeticism, parapsychological casework from the past and things that has shown. It's tying all these things in together and showing something very, very important, that the paranormal is personal and it's deeply intimate. And we spoke briefly about that in the interview that we did yesterday. It is a deeply personal thing. The paranormal, whether you've had an experience or not, is deeply personal. And the reason I can say that is because you don't have to have an experience to be able to relate to so many of the finer aspects and the grander, the wider aspects of the paranormal. Looking into the unknown can tell us more about ourselves than the actual thing we're looking into. That, I think, is the biggest takeaway from a life dedicated to seeking mystery. And now I didn't say seeking the answers to mystery or finding out what the mystery is. It's just seeking mystery, because that's where the joy is. Joy comes from the mystery. Now, There can also be fear shrouding mystery oftentimes, or mystery shrouds fear, I guess, vice versa, depending on how you look at it. It doesn't need to be that way, and I don't think it should be that way. But oftentimes you hear the thing, we fear what we don't understand. And I've said that 1,000 times on this program, and it doesn't need to be that way, and it shouldn't be that way. And in fact, it hasn't always been that way. We can look to some of the case studies in the book Humankind by Rutger Bregman, and we can look at past indigenous civilizations before we gave up our hunter-gathering ways and started kind of owning property and being suspicious of each other and thinking we owned land, et cetera, et cetera. But even then, when quote-unquote civilized societies, which is the exact opposite of what that word means, would encounter an indigenous culture, they would open their arms and they would welcome these seafaring strangers, these more advanced people. You know what I mean? And they trusted, they had open arms, they trusted, and they were welcoming. That tells us that we don't fear the unknown. We are taught to fear the unknown. We have learned that behavior. There has been a lot of learning of that behavior for a long time. Can we unlearn it? I certainly believe we can. And that ties in directly to the UFO, UAP disclosure movement that's happening. The fear that shrouds this whole thing that's associated with it can be utilized as a tool, I suppose, and a weapon. When that tool is utilized in a certain way, it can definitely act as weaponry. Now, Dr. Stephen Greer in episode 4 of his podcast, I will watch episode 5 as soon as I'm done recording this, and I'll probably record another episode maybe tomorrow that'll go out on Thursday. And we'll probably discuss that, whatever it is. I mean, the only reason he records is if there's something he needs to talk about, what he calls the disclosure mosaic. Anyway, I hear the music, which means we have to take a quick little break, and we're going to do that. When we come back, I'm going to tell you more about my thoughts about episode 4, and, how even that episode can show us how deeply personal the paranormal is. We're going to be right back. Patreon.com/Ryan Singer. No commercials ever for $3 a month. Anniversary week. All 5 episodes this week are commercial free for all the patrons, free or otherwise. I love you, and we'll be right back. And I'm back. I hope you're back too. Welcome back to the program. We're getting ready to discuss episode 4 of Dr. Stephen Greer's podcast about basically the subtitle of that podcast could be explaining the disclosure mosaic, piecing together the disclosure mosaic. That's what, excuse me, I've been drinking some CZs over here because I've been up and at it all day, so I'm just trying to stay juiced. That's what he calls it. The stated mission of the podcast is piecing together the disclosure mosaic because everything is so compartmentalized, and he spent 35 years working on the disclosure project that he probably better than anyone has the big picture of disclosure and what it means and what it's all about. And I want to tie this into the deeply personal nature of the paranormal and the experiencer, the researcher, the investigator, the experimenter, even those who are passingly interested in paranormal phenomena because they maybe enjoy good werewolf movies or zombie movies or things like that, right? So, or, vampire movies, anything that kind of even is loosely tied to the paranormal, Sabrina the Teenage Witch, the occult, the esoteric, secret societies, etc. When we are looking for answers to mysteries, when we seek mystery, we essentially are looking for ourselves. We are trying to find components and mysterious aspects of ourself, our own personality, our thoughts, our feelings. The deepness that is within inside us is infinite. And trying to get to the bottom of who we are is a fool's game. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't dive down that well. Because we do, and it's enjoyable. And we can learn big things about ourselves. And some of those things we don't love, right? And from time to time, we learn things about ourselves that we don't love. Like, oh, I can be petty. I can be jealous. I have anger over this issue because it's really about this thing that is about me more than another person. It is a reflection of ourself oftentimes. No matter what we are experiencing or what emotion, it's kind of an egotistical way to think about it. Like, if it's always about us. And it's not egotistical in that way. I'm not trying to frame it in that way. But, it is, what does it say about ourselves when we stand up for a side of an issue? When we choose hateful language over loving language, or the language of forgiveness and coming together. And trust me, I get it. I live in Los Angeles, California. I'm a super snowflake. I am at the very least a socialist. If not, I don't know. I'm coming to grips with the fact that I might not be a communist, but because of the embedded ideas of what it means of human nature that go along with communism. But so I get it. I live in a sanctuary city. I am super progressive when it comes to my ideas of what policies should be enacted. I pay higher taxes, and I do that with pleasure. Because guess what? Public services are so much easier to access in a state like California than they are in a state like, I don't know, where I grew up, Ohio. So much easier. Right? Because we pay higher taxes, there are better services for people. And yes, the taxes in California are higher because they are making up for the gap of the federal deficit of what they should be doing. I'm not talking about the national deficit. I'm talking about how the federal government comes up short in so many ways taking care of its citizens by not providing free education, not providing free health care for everyone who is here inside the border. I don't care if they're documented or not. I won't call them illegal because people can't be illegal. Let's stop with all that bullshit. What kind of language do we use when we refer to anything and everything? And I'm not perfect, right? I get too fired up about stuff. I say angry things all the time. But it shows us who we are, and it shows what is it showing about ourselves when we pick words, or we, even me getting fired up and saying bullshit right now. It's just like, that's showing me something about myself, that I'm too easily baited into my anger mechanism, right? And nobody even said anything to me. It was just me being in my mind, right? A lot of work needs to be done over here, okay, on, really latching onto the long-lasting peace and love vibe. So, anyway, so when we search for the mysteries of life and the paranormal, we are also, in a very big way, searching for the mysteries and the potential of ourselves, of the human consciousness, of the spirit, of the soul, whatever you want to call it. We are trying to find out, what are we actually capable of? Holy smokes, right? This is possible in the world. Oh my God, what am I doing over here? Wasting all of this potential. That to me is one of the big things that haunts me on the reg, as the kids would say. Well, kids that have now grown up and to become older people. On the regular, I am haunted by the fact that I know I have limitless potential. I know that I am more than my physical body, and I can perceive more that is physical matter. These are limitations that I learned, and now that I know better, I should do whatever it takes, do the work, by golly, to transcend that, to become a master at remote viewing, astral projection, lucid dreaming, psychic readings, telekinetic or telekinesis. These things, transvection, which is a fancy word for levitation. And I say transvection because I want you to think I'm smarter than I am. But it's just a thing I do. Peradventure, maybe you do it as well. See, I did it again. Peradventure means perhaps. What a great word, though. Peradventure. Peradventure, I'll have some lactose-free, sugar-free ice cream after this as a reward. Peradventure, you shall. I think I'm going to. who knows? The jury's out on that. It's already too late. But what does it show us? The paranormal is deeply personal. It's intimate. It is profoundly, profoundly personal. Dr. Greer goes into detail about his history, about why he started doing this. And I'm sure he has told these stories in other places, in maybe fragments and in other ways. But you can see the emotion. You can hear it. And it's genuine. He's not Laurence Olivier. He's not Channing Tatum, who, by the way, is an incredible actor. That's why I'm dropping him in. Did I just drop Laurence Olivier and Channing Tatum in the same sentence? I think I did. We love Channing Tatum in this house. Okay? Is he my new Swayze? I don't know. He might be. If they were going to remake Dirty Dancing, God forbid they remade Dirty Dancing, it fucking better be Channing Tatum. Okay? It better be. I'm going to pitch him that idea, actually. So, who should be baby in a corner? I don't know. Lady Gaga? Oh, we got a hit over here. We got a hit. Okay, so deeply personal. Dr. Greer details his story of alien contact as, I think, an 18-year-old. He's very careful and corrective when people might call it an abduction. It was not. He was doing a meditation on a mountain in North Carolina somewhere. I'm guessing Brown Mountain. That's my guess. And saw an ET. And that ET dematerialized or became invisible and then touched him. And then next thing you know, he was on a ship doing a meditation. We're going to talk more about his experience. And that's where he learned the C5 protocols. They were taught to him aboard an ET craft. I mean, is this woo enough for you? Is this woo enough for you? It's just the right amount of woo for this guy over here. We're going to be right back after a short break. Don't forget to love each other. All episodes are commercial free at the Patreon page for all patrons, even if you're a free patron. All 5 episodes this week will not have commercials over there if you just sign up and become a patron without even donating a penny. Or you could donate $1,000 a month. Do you have that kind of money? Who knows? Mark Zuckerberg does. I would be pretty torn if I got a notification that said new patron, Mark Zuckerberg, $10,000 a month. I'd be like, oh God, do I take the money? We're going to be right back. Here we go again. I would take the money. I'd be out of debt in, 10 months if I did that. And then I would, I'd be using his money for good. I probably wouldn't pay off my debt. Full transparency, I wouldn't pay my debt off. They can take it and shove it. Oh, that's teaching me something about myself right now, isn't it? Okay, so Dr. Greer goes into this very personal story about his origins and how he learns the C5 protocols aboard an ET craft, essentially. And then he gets into something very interesting that I think you'll be interested to hear about. And I kind of touched on it. I kind of told the story a little bit in the interview with Matthew Jackson. He talks about in, I think, the early 1990s, at some event, he was approached by an old man, a scientist who had invented a device. And that device used audio, used sounds and noise to create a state in which it was possible to, expand your consciousness and travel across the universe and do many of the things C5 is trying to get you to do, to get into that same state. And it can do it with just simply these noises, right? And then he goes on to tell how this man wanted to give him the technology to do so, that he invented. And Dr. Greer declined his offer. He said that even though he trusted himself with it, he didn't trust people with it. And then this man later went on to die because he was already in his 80s when he approached Dr. Greer. And then the CIA swallowed up his company and his technology. That technology is the same technology that is used by the Monroe Institute, because that man was Robert Monroe. Does he say Robert Monroe? No, he does not. He almost kind of goes out of his way to not mention who this guy is. during the interview. I am here to tell you I know who it was. And I am 99.9% positive who it was. And it is Robert Monroe. And Robert Monroe invented the HemiSync technology, which uses, I believe, binaural beats and other things to change your brain waves to get you into states where you can remote view, astral project, and so much more. That is the meditation program I have been doing for, I don't know, the better part of 2 months now, almost on a nightly basis. Okay. Now, they are guided meditations by Monroe himself. Monroe wanted Greer to have this technology because he said, you're doing right. What you're doing with the C5 protocols, this is what this stuff is for. This is how this knowledge and this technology should be used. And Greer declined, like he said. And then I believe it was 25 years ago-ish that through Freedom of Information Act disclosure, it was released that, or made aware that the CIA had been using the gateway meditation programs for all their CIA agents. So, it's pretty easy to put those pieces. This isn't some great Hardy Boys mystery that I solved. This isn't the Scooby-Doo gang over here. I ain't Columbo. Did you ever consider that maybe it was Robert Monroe? Yes, it was Robert Monroe. Oh, just one more thing. Have you astral projected? So it's Robert Monroe. And by all accounts, a beautiful man who, he's former military. He was a scientist. He got rich with inventions and in the broadcasting business, I believe, as well. I've got his 3 books, and I'll probably start reading them tonight or tomorrow. I got too much stuff to do tonight, but I have his trilogy of books. Faraway Journeys. What's it? Far Journeys is the name of one of them. Ultimate Journey is another one. So let me actually pause real quick. Okay, I'm back. I had to grab the book. Journeys Out of the Body, Robert Monroe. Written originally 1972. I haven't read this book yet, but this is the first one, and I'm guessing Far Journey is probably number 2, and Ultimate Journey is probably number 3, just by the adjectives. Introduction. Let's just discover this together, shall we? In our action-oriented society, when a man lies down to sleep, he is effectively out of the picture. He will lie still for 6 to 8 hours, so he is not, quote-unquote, behaving, thinking productively, or doing anything significant. We all know that people dream, but we raise our children to regard dreams and other experiences occurring during sleep as unimportant, as not real, in the way that the events of the day are. Thus, most people are in the habit of forgetting their dreams, and on the occasions when they do remember them, they usually regard them as mere oddities. It is true that psychologists and psychiatrists regard the dreams of patients as useful clues to the malfunctioning of their personalities, but even in this application, dreams and other nocturnal experiences are generally not treated as real in any sense, but only as some sort of internal data processing of the human computer. There are some important exceptions to this general put-down of dreams, but for the vast majority of people in our society today, dreams are not things that serious people concern themselves with. What are we to make of a person who takes exception to this general belief, who claims to have had experiences during sleep or other forms of unconsciousness that were not only impressive to him, but which he feels were real? Suppose this person claims that on the previous night he had an experience of flying through the air over a large city, which he soon recognized as New York. Further, he tells us that not only was this dream intensely vivid, but that he knew at the time that it was not a dream, that he was really in the air over New York City. And this conviction that he was really there sticks with him for the rest of his life, despite our reminding him that a sleeping man couldn't really be flying by himself in the air over New York City. Probably we will ignore a person who makes such a report, or we will politely, or not so politely, inform him that he is becoming a little weak in the head or crazy, and suggest that he see a psychotherapist. If he is insistent about the reality of his experience, especially if he has other strange experiences too, we may, with the best of intentions, see about committing him to a mental hospital. Our traveler, on the other hand, if he is smart, will quickly learn not to talk about his experiences. The only problem with that, as I have found from talking to many such people, is that he may worry about whether he's going crazy. For the sake of argument, let's make our traveler even more troubling. Suppose in his account he goes on to say that after flying over New York City for a while, he flew down to your apartment. There he saw you and 2 other people unknown to him conversing. He describes the 2 people in detail and mentions a few things about the topic of conversation occurring in the minute or so he was there. Let's suppose he is correct. At the time he had his experience, you were holding a conversation on the topic he mentions with the 2 people who fit our traveler's descriptions. What do we make of things now? The usual reaction to a hypothetical situation of this type is that it is all very interesting, but as we know that it couldn't possibly happen, we needn't seriously think about it or think about what it might mean. Or we might comfort ourselves by invoking the word coincidence, a marvelous word, coincidence, for relieving mental upsets. Unfortunately, for our peace of mind, there are thousands of instances reported by normal people of exactly this sort of occurrence. We are not dealing with a purely hypothetical situation. We're going to be right back. I'm going to continue reading from the introduction because I think this is... I mean, are you recognizing some of this? Do you recognize some of these things that are being brought up, these themes? Yeah, I know you do. Such events have been termed traveling clairvoyance, astral projection, or a more scientific term, out-of-the-body experience, OOBEs. We can formally define an OOBE as an event in which the experiencer, 1, seems to perceive some portion of some environment which could not possibly be perceived from where his physical body is known to be at the time, and 2, knows at the time that he is not dreaming or fantasizing. The experiencer seems to possess his normal consciousness at that time, and even though he may reason that this cannot be happening, he will feel all his normal critical faculties to be present, and so knows he is not dreaming. Further, he will not decide after awakening that this was a dream. How then do we understand this strange phenomena? If we look to scientific sources for information about OOBEs, we shall find practically none at all. Scientists have, by and large, simply not paid any attention to these phenomena. The situation is rather similar to that of the scientific literature on extrasensory perception, ESP. Phenomena such as telepathy, clairvoyance, precognition, and psychokinesis are impossible in terms of the current physical worldview. Since they cannot happen, most scientists do not bother to read the evidence indicating that they do happen. Hence, not having read the evidence, their belief in the impossibility of such phenomena is reinforced. This kind of circular reasoning in support of one's comfortable belief system is not unique to scientists by any means, but it has resulted in very little scientific research on ESP or OOBEs. In spite of the lack of hard scientific data, there are still a number of definite conclusions one can make from reading what material there is. First, OOBEs are a universal human experience, not in the sense that they happen to large numbers of people, but in that they have happened all through recorded history, and there are marked similarities in the experience among people who otherwise are extremely different in terms of cultural background. One can find reports of OOBEs by housewives in Kansas, which closely resemble accounts of OOBEs from ancient Egyptian or other faraway sources. Second, the OOBE is generally a once-in-a-lifetime experience, seemingly experienced by accident. Illnesses sometimes bring it about, especially illnesses which are almost fatal. great emotional stress sometimes brings it about. In many cases, it simply happens during sleep without our having any idea what may have caused it. In very rare instances, it seems to have been brought about by a deliberate attempt. Third, the experience of an OOB is usually one of the most profound experiences of a person's life and radically alters his beliefs. This is usually expressed as, quote, I no longer believe in survival of death or an immortal soul. I know that I will survive death. Does that sound familiar? The difference between believing something and knowing something? We talk about that here, yes. The person feels that he has directly experienced being alive and conscious without his physical body, and therefore knows that he possesses some kind of soul that will survive bodily death. There's a fourth one, and OOB, I'm skipping ahead, is generally extremely joyful to those who have it. I would make a rough estimate that between 90 and 95% of the people who have this experience are very glad it occurred and find it joyful, while 5% are very frightened by it, for the only way they can interpret it while it is happening is that they are dying. Oh, there's a fifth one too. In some instances of OOBEs, the description of what was happening at a distant place is correct and more accurate than we would expect by coincidence. Not the majority, by any means, but some. To explain these, we must postulate either that the hallucinatory experience of the OOBE was combined with the operation of ESP, or that in some sense the person really was there. The OOBE then becomes very real indeed. The introduction looks like it goes on for a bunch more pages. So this is Charles Tart, who wrote the introduction here. That was not Robert Monroe. And boy, oh boy, some very familiar themes. No? And just as a reminder, I'm going to give you a little, just a refresher, and myself included, about Charles Tart, who was an American... He's an American psychologist and parapsychologist known for his work on the nature of consciousness, particularly altered states of consciousness. As one of the founders of the field of transpersonal psychology and for his research in parapsychology. He was born in 1937. Let's see here. Oh, he's a senior research fellow at the Institute of Noetic Sciences, IONS. We love that. Professor Emeritus of Psychology at UC Davis. And, check this out. And emeritus member of the Monroe Institute Board of Advisors. He was also the holder of the Bigelow Chair of Consciousness Studies at the University of Nevada in Las Vegas. You're starting to understand it's a pretty small world out here when it comes to this stuff. You've got certain names that always seem to be involved. They dedicated their lives to the study of such things, potentially, and got pulled into it, and it's just what they do. And I'm not saying it's a nefarious thing necessarily, but now this book, this is some heavy lifting. We got about 275 pages here, and Journeys Out of the Body. It's going to be a good book. It'll be my next book. We've just decided. We started reading it together. But there are some familiar themes that Charles Tart brings up that you probably heard me read just now when it comes to out-of-body experiences. The same thing with paranormal experiences. So what we have here is we have a huge commonality. Essentially, in a way that we can almost assume them to be the same thing, right? One is of the other, and vice versa. The fact that they're worried about people thinking they're crazy by sharing their stories. People think that they are crazy, or they are intoxicated, or they need help. And the more you talk about it, the more you stand by it, the crazier they think you are. This is a common experience this is a common thing for the experiencer. And to stand by your experience and to furthermore share that experience over and over and over again in the face of disbelief, what I call unbelieving eyes, it is remarkable and it's courageous. And the bravery that people have shown over the years have made it easier for people like myself and others to do the exact same thing. And trust me, we feel crazy. We feel crazy enough on our own without you having to call us crazy. There is no scenario or idea or circumstance that may have unfolded instead of the thing that actually happened that we haven't considered over and over and over again before you actually tell it to us. We don't need you to be like, hey, did you think that maybe you did this instead of that? Or what you saw was this instead of this? It's like, no, we've already considered all of that. We considered it almost instantaneously during and after the event was occurring. So we don't need that from other people. Now, we talk about cutting the rope on the anchor of skepticism so we can more freely, navigate the seas of the supernatural. And I do love that. And as I'm reminded that my soul contract requires me to not pick a side in this matter, I have to say, well, maybe the anchor has a purpose for some reason, yes, to get everybody on board the boat. Because if we can get because not everybody's going to get on the board, not everybody's going to get on board the boat if there's no anchor. I don't know why having an anchor makes it feel more safe. Does it? Maybe for this extended analogy metaphor type thing that we're doing here, it doesn't fit exactly. But for some reason, not everybody will get on the boat if there's no anchor attached. So maybe the anchor serves a purpose. Now, I honestly do, in my heart of hearts, believe that skepticism is a human flaw. It's an animalistic flaw that is, programmed in us from our survivalistic days when, we were just worried about surviving and didn't have language and expanded thought and concepts, maybe potentially. I don't know. I think skepticism stems from that, and it more than likely stems from that, and it's holding us down. It's holding us back, for sure. And people are like, "Oh, careful! If you have an open mind, your brain falls out." Well, it's like, I don't need my brain, bro. Okay, I am part of the universal consciousness. Okay, this brain is nothing more than a place. It's like a paperweight, just holding my physical body here until I can blast off into my true destiny of being one with the universal love. So yeah, I'm going to open my mind and hope my brain falls out, because it's the brain that's getting in the way. Take that. Okay, learning something about myself right now. We're going to be right back. One more little commercial break. Here we go. Okay, I'm back. I hope you're back too. We're talking about Robert Monroe. We got into Robert Monroe because it was disclosed through episode 4 of the Dr. Stephen Greer podcast that he approached Dr. Greer in the early 90s trying to give him his technology, which is the technology that you use, the HemiSync technology, what they use at the Monroe Institute. To this day, you can pay $2,500. You can go out there for like a 4 or 5 day, 5-night thing, and you can do the gateway. They put you through the gateway program. There's all kinds of things they got going out there. I've never been out there, not yet. I will definitely try to make a trip out there, or you can just buy the meditation for $1,000, right? And do it that way. But here's the thing: that's a pretty high cost, right? So I don't know. Maybe somebody has a Patreon page where they've kind of made that available for you. One might think someone has done that probably by now. Any hoodles. It was interesting to hear this. And Greer also in this episode, just to get back on topic for the more topical stuff that's happening right now, and this is early February of 2025. Jake Barber, the whistleblower interview, had just come out in the last month. there is chaos in the federal government currently with the dismantling of, or the attempted dismantling of things, and with a foreign national trying to, fucking who knows. Anywho, here's what we do know. That Dr. Greer was offered a couple $2 billion 35 years ago to essentially go to the dark side by a certain general. I can never remember the guy's name. It's like Stubenfeld Jr. the Third or something. Anyway, probably some agent of darkness scumbag, right? Anyway, I'm learning a lot about myself right now by using that language. So he turned it down. Also, something interesting I found out about Dr. Greer, he will never sign an NDA, which I thought was interesting. And then he explained why. And then once I heard that, I was like, oh, that's probably a good policy to maybe live by, right? Never do anything where you have to sign an NDA. That makes sense. Anyway, so he goes on to try to piece together more bits and things of the disclosure mosaic after 35 years of working in this, 50 years doing CE5. And the big message in this episode was that CE5 protocols are diametrically opposed, and he said this multiple times, so I will direct quote him, could not be more different, end quote, than what the government is doing with their psionics, or with the shadow government, these military contractor people, secret space program, like these craft retrieval programs, for these contractors. It couldn't be more different. CE5 could not be more different than what they're doing, the psionics teams, and calling in these UFOs and then shooting them down with electromagnetic pulse weaponry. Could not be more different. Should you ever be afraid of doing CE5? The answer was a resounding no. Has anyone ever been hurt doing CE5? He said no, resoundingly. In fact, what will happen, there have been multiple, at least a dozen cases that he's been witness to or been around of healings happening during CE5, as opposed to people being hurt. Now, I have heard someone one time, I can't remember who it was, kind of alluded to the fact that CE5 was dangerous, and I don't know what they did, and I don't know how they did it or what they were doing with it, but by all accounts, so I mean, there's over 1 million people doing CE5 currently, and at least according to Dr. Greer, I'm guessing he's had more than 1 million downloads of the app, or who knows, but I'm here to say that I've never had a terrifying experience. I've done CE5 a bunch now, never been scared. Never been scared during CE. I mean, I've done CE5 in Florida at the location at night in total darkness, where I usually feel scared anyway at night there. And so there was a little bit of that feeling, but it wasn't from CE5. It was just from being outside at that location at night and closing my eyes, So, yeah, that's not CE5 that is scaring me. In fact, I think I'm going to do it alone tonight, and I'll update you if I have it in me to do it. I feel like I'm losing my voice. I was on we did the Matt Jackson chat earlier, and then I jumped on a Zoom hang, which, by the way, next week I'll probably have one of those for you. I'm gonna we'll have a very special event type episode where it is a paranormal carnival, essentially, kind of a, who knows what's going to happen exactly, but I'll give you more details about that another time. But I was on a different Zoom call, just, kind of something I hadn't done in a while. I hadn't done any art in a while, so I was drawing, just doodling and coloring and things like that. Anyway, had to make time for myself, right? I had a great therapy session today. Then I went to the gym, and now I did that. So I had a good self-care day. Amidst trying to be productive and do everything else. That's not important. What's important is I'm going to be eating some lactose-free, sugar-free ice cream. I'm going to be watching episode 5 of the Dr. Stephen Greer podcast tonight, and I'm going to be filling you in about thoughts on that as well later in the week, probably on Friday's episode. Now,
something that we should keep in mind here is that Greer did talk about some pretty, what some people could be considered or would consider troubling things. And I highly recommend watching or listening to. I watch them on YouTube, and I make sure I'm not doing anything else, so I can really focus and pay attention and take notes if needed. But there was some troubling things that human beings, specifically the bad players in this, the people, the general contractor people, the trillionaires who are in charge of these programs and reverse engineering all of this, without the knowledge of the United States government, are getting to a point now where the ET civilizations, plural, aren't going to be putting up with it much longer. And according to Dr. Greer, because we are going to become a threat to the neighborhood. And according to Dr. Greer, that is worst case scenario, because Mike Missoula, who's on, he's a filmmaker and he's done all of Greer's movies. By all accounts, from everything I have heard from people who know him, Missoula is a great guy. And, I got to try to get him on the podcast. Yeah, so, he's, super on board with all this. He's super interested. He's not one of these guys just trying to make shows or movies out there with a bunch of hoax garbage, et cetera, et cetera. He's a real one, as they say. So we're team Mike over here. And Greer says it's worse. So Mike asked him, he said, but there's some people who might ask you right now and be like, hey man, if the aliens are fed up with it and they have to intervene, that's best case scenario, isn't it? We can finally have them come and take care of this for us. And Greer said, no, it's worst case scenario, actually. Because it's not like there'd be some big intergalactic war. Their technology is so far advanced from us, it would take a split of a second to shut everything down. But it is worst case scenario for an intervention to happen. We have to do this ourselves. We have to make it happen ourselves. That was a big takeaway. We don't want that to happen. We don't need these saviors from outside to save us. And not to mention the ultra-terrestrials, which we can get into later. Oh boy, what's that even about, right? Who knows? Well, I don't know. Some people do, actually. It's about a whole different rabbit hole I went down. We've talked about ultra-terrestrials before on this show. Anyway, that's kind of the big points here. Greer learned CE5 on a spacecraft. It's a deeply personal thing. It's very emotional. It's intimate. We don't want the aliens to interfere. There is technology that interfaces with consciousness, that augments consciousness, and vice versa. Consciousness can augment technology. CAT and TAC are the acronyms for that. The government is using that to bring in, or at least these shadow government people are. And CE5 could not be more different than that. So don't be afraid to try it if you want. Download the app. I got it. I love it. We'll do CE5 together someday. Who knows? Anniversary week. Here we go. Just a reminder, over at patreon.com, all these episodes are commercial free, even for free patrons. So join the community over there. We're, I think, 130 strong, which is pretty cool. So, thanks for listening. 11 years, 800th episode. Wow. Number 333. This is really cool. The 11th year celebration. We're into year 12 now. Let's make some more magic, and maybe 800 more episodes. What do you say? I think we can do it. Especially if I do 5 a week for the rest of my life. Maybe I'll just start live streaming. Who knows? I do want to live stream Late Night on the Astral Plane. We're working on that. We're getting there. Okay. I love you. I hope you love yourself. RyanSingerComedy.com's got some tour dates for this summer. I'll be in Arkansas. I'll be in Georgia. I'll be in Indiana, Illinois. I'll be in Iowa. I'll be in Ohio. I'm trying to get to Boston for the first time. I'm trying to get all over the place before I film a new special. More on that on the website, RyanSingerComedy.com. Okay, and if I don't see you at a live show, I'll see you at the watering hole on the astral plane.